Welcome to chapter 31 of the book of Exodus, continuing with God's instructions to Moses as he was on the mount. And he begins here, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, as he has spoken to him many times here, Behold, I have called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, son of Or, from out of the tribe of Judah. Philis, phylum comes from that word. So he came from the same tribe as Jesus will come from, the Judah. He was not a Levite, but yet he is going to be making all of the items for the tabernacle. And I filled him a divine spirit of wisdom and understanding and higher knowledge, to consider in every work and to supervise construction. So he is the supervisor over all of these things. And oh, that we would have a divine spirit that God would give to us, and he does, of wisdom, of what to do, what not to do, what, in his case, of exactly how to build a certain object. And I've done a lot of building and fabricating myself with canvas, with the bags and my house, and it takes a certain amount of practicality and wisdom. You have to understand exactly what you're going to use the item for, and if it's going to be strong enough to hold, whether it's a seam in a cloth or if it's a beam of a house or something like that, and a higher knowledge. So, well, that would be subjective to whoever you're comparing it to. Now, if you're comparing it to an idiot, wouldn't take higher knowledge, would probably be average. But here, the higher knowledge, I believe, is acknowledge maybe that God gives or this person seeks. If you have all these other things, you have wisdom, understanding, and you build a lot of wonderful things, but without the higher knowledge of God, what he would have, it's sort of incomplete, I think. There are people in history that have done a lot of wonderful things, but then afterwards they realized that God was the one that is the maker of all things and gives the knowledge, and gave him the credit. And one of them I can think of is Dr. Werner von Braun. He was a Nazi, a Nazi SS lieutenant in Nazi Germany, who was chosen to build rocketry to attack into England with these V-2 rockets. And then he was captured or surrendered, and then went to the United States and became the head of the space agency in the United States and going to the moon. And he was eventually given citizenship in the United States. And then that's with all things you would say, wow, that's just really wonderful. Had wisdom, this man was understanding how to get to the moon, everything to consider the work. And the higher knowledge that he acquired at the end was that he realized that Jesus was God and that God had made everything and the universe, and became an evangelical Christian before he passed away. From an SS lieutenant to a born-again Christian. Quite a story. And also to supervise construction, so you're over a bunch of people that are doing things, and you show them what they need to do, to work the gold and the silver and the brass. So the gold, silver, and brass can be the utensils, candlesticks, and so forth. And generally here, when you get the blue, the purple, and the spun scarlet, and the linen being twined, are all soft materials that you sew or weave. And the stone cutting works, ergonomics comes from that. And for the woodworkers of the works of wood, xylon. to work according to all the works. So he's supervising all of this. And I have given him even Eliab, the son of Ahisamach, from out of the tribe of Dan. So now we have another person that's working on this, second in charge, who is not a Levite either. And to everyone discerning in heart, I have given understanding. To be discerning in heart is, some people can be discerning on how to do things, and they do them because they're forced into do it, forced labor, or if you're in the army, or if you're in prison, you do things. But in heart, generally, is something that you, it comes from inside of you, and you enjoy it, or you'll enjoy the what comes to pass from making something. And they shall make all as much as I gave orders to you. Of the tent of the testimony, so that was that tent where all these, where the Ark of the Covenant went in and so forth, could even be around the area, now the shrouds and so forth, and the Ark of the Covenant, and the atonement seat upon it, where the cherubim were upon, and the equipment of the tent, and the altars and the table, and the incense altar, and the whole burnt offering altar, and the table of showbread with the bread loaves, and all the utensils of it, and the pure lampstand of 7 branches, and all the utensils of it, and the bathing tubs where they washed in its base, and the ministry apparels of Aaron, which we shown with the plate in the front with all the stones and engraved with the names of the 12 tribes, and the shoulder piece and their stones, and the apparels of the sons in the officiating as priests to me, who also had their own uniform, and the anointing oil, which we had went through in the last chapter, and the incense of the composition of the holy place, all the things that they were to make there for that purpose of service to God in the holy place, according to all as much as I gave charge to you, they shall make Bezaleel and Eliab and the other person. Now it changes, and the Lord brings up another subject. It says, and one we've heard before, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, and you speak to the sons of Israel, saying, perceive and guard my Sabbaths. Again, the Savatah, the Sabbaths. Speak to the sons of Israel. It doesn't say to the nations. It says to the sons of Israel. And down later, it says it again in verse 16. And so, to guard the Sabbath. Now, I mentioned back in chapter 16, verse 29, I believe, where it mentioned that God said they're not even to go outside of the house or their place, and that seems like that was not followed up, because it doesn't mention it anymore, although I question whether it's just being ignored because it wasn't convenient. But he continues and says, for it is a semeion, a sign. We have a semaphore, a sign. People used to have code with semaphore code, as a sign by me and among you unto your generations, that you might know that I am the Lord, that I, the Lord, am the one sanctifying you, and there's that verb, setting you aside for a special purpose to these people. And this is one of the things that they were to do, is to obey the Sabbath laws, and it's into their generations. But by the time of Christ, they had slanted it quite a bit, made it different to suit their purposes. And then when Jesus came and they found fault with him, with going through the Sabbaths and healing on the Sabbaths and doing all sorts of things, when they came against him, then basically he pointed out things on the Sabbath that they were breaking themselves, taking animals out, circumcising on the Sabbath, and he ended up saying that the Sabbath on account of man exists, not the man on account of the Sabbaths. And that it says in Matthew 12:8, Jesus says, "For the Son of Man is master of the Sabbath." So with all these changes that Jesus brought about, which I believe is not against the Sabbath and these laws, but, well, I saw that and I was thinking about it and I ran across this and it says, Jesus says, "You should not think that I came to depose the law or the prophets. I came not to depose, but to fulfill. For amen, I say to you, until whenever the heaven and the earth shall pass away, in no way should pass from the law one iota or one dot, until whenever all comes to pass. And then whoever then should untie one of these, least of these commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of the heavens. And whoever should do and should teach, this one shall be called great in the kingdom of the heavens. For I say to you that if your righteousness should not abound greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, in no way should you enter into the kingdom of heaven." Basically, he's condemning the Jews at that time because they weren't doing the things themselves. So basically, they were untying the things of the law. Jesus wasn't untying them, but he said he was the Lord of the Sabbath. They had the Sabbath. It was given by God, who Jesus was. He was in the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So these things also, I believe, are to the Jews. It's not to everybody else. It's to the Jews he's talking about. He mentions the Pharisees and the scribes. Well, we don't try to become better than the Pharisees and scribes as Christians, and I'm not a Jew. I suppose if you're Jewish and you want to go along with this program of doing things, you're more than likely going to fail. I don't see how you could possibly do all these things today. Israel itself is not doing them. So if there's anybody that's a giant lawbreaker today, it would be Israel, who doesn't do any of these things that God had for their generations. And then with Jesus, came, and he says the law is still there, but I don't believe it's for the Gentiles, or as you would call them, the nations. And it says in Luke 24:44, and he said to them, "These are the words which I spoke to you while still being with you, that it is necessary to fulfill all the things being written in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms concerning me." He's fulfilling. At other places, he fulfills the law. And when you fulfill something, and that's like, you fulfilled it, that's it. So then you start over in another thing. And Jesus has fulfilled it. In John 1:17, it says, "For the law was given through Moses, the favor and the truth came through Jesus Christ." So we have favor, a free gift from God, and truth came through Jesus Christ. And this is what we have, and it's special for the people that are believers in Jesus Christ. Things changed. But right here, we'll go back, and it says, "And you shall guard the Sabbath, for it is holy to you. The one profaning it unto death shall be put to death. Everyone who shall do work on it, that soul shall be utterly destroyed from out of the midst of his people." Now, of course, they came against Jesus' working when they were going through the wheat fields, and the disciples were rubbing the wheat. And if you go into the Mishnah, you'll find all sorts of things that they turned came up with in their own interpretations of this Sabbath law in a convoluted way. And if you get a Mishnah, you'll see it. And then he continues, God does, 6 days you shall do works. But the seventh day is a holy Sabbath rest. So a holy Sabbath, so it makes this an adjective modifying the Sabbath. The holy Sabbath is a day set apart, the seventh day to the Lord. Now, I believe in the seventh day rest. I don't believe in necessarily is called the Sabbath. The Sabbath is more of a term for the Jews, and the seventh day rest was instituted by God at the beginning of time, the world, and there were no Jews then, so it's obvious that the seventh day rest is something that God did, and it was observed throughout the ages, and it should still be observed today, but I don't think we should be put underneath any type of sabbatical laws as such. And we were warned against that even in the New Testament, where it goes into that. Here it is. Yes, Colossians 2:16. Let not then anyone judge you in food, or in drink, or in rank of holiday feast, or new moon, or Sabbath, Sabbatah. So there you go. New Testament for the people under favor and grace. And the sons of Israel shall guard the Sabbaths to observe them unto their generation. Who is this? The sons of Israel. Doesn't say the nations here. If it was, it would say the nations. It is an eternal covenant with me and the sons of Israel. Sons of Israel, over and over again. It makes it specific. It is an eternal sign or aeonial sign. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and the earth, and on the seventh day he ceased and rested. It's interesting. I was always, when I see this, I was wondering, well, should we, today in the United States, we work for 5 days and you get 2 days off. Does that against God? If God says to work for 6 days. Oh, I don't think so, but we are to work. I work 6 days a week, but I don't work as a labor under somebody that I have a time clock. And I do things on the Sabbath, preparing my video seminars and so forth. I suppose you could consider things that I do on the Sabbath that would be against the Mosaic Sabbath. Anyway, and he gave to Moses when he rested from speaking to him in Mount Sinai, which is that Jebel Sin, oh shoot, I forgot the last name of the mountain. Bishar, Bishar, which is only a couple of thousand feet high, which explains them going up and down many times. So he comes down with the two tablets. He gives them he didn't come down here. He gives them the tablets to Dio, two of the martyriu, tablets written on stone, written by the dactylo to Theou, the finger of God. So God was able to carve into the stone the things that he had, the testimonies. Now, if it was everything, what exactly it was on the tablet, it doesn't say. Generally, when you see pictures, it's the 10 Commandments, but it could be more. I'm not sure. So now Moses has these two tablets, and we'll go into what happens next in chapter 32 as Moses was up there in the mountain. Hope you'll join us in the next video seminar and find out what these people did while Moses was up being given the law for these people to make them a better people, a separated people, a consecrated people, and what They did. Very interesting. Don't want to miss it. And till then, God bless.